like a Matchbox car with a blower in it.
Yeah. I was in high school and I was like, I need to get a Mitsubishi.
I need a Gremlin.
Yeah.
With a turbo kit.
Yeah.
And a fin.
Under lights, spinning rims.
Shit, I forgot how old those movies are too.
Nos.
What year was the first one? 99?
No, I think it had to be the 2000s, 2001 or 2. Maybe 2000 even.
I gotta look it up. We went
hit
down a wormhole.
Hit the gal.
Take a guess.
I think 2001.
I think like 99. I think they just. This just said. This was totally wrong. It just said 2016, but that's like the new one.
Most recent one.
The most recent one's like The Fat. 2001. Fuck.
Yo,
8 movies. Yeah, right on.
Sauce Esquire.
Give credit where it's due.
With the hits.
With the hits. Give credit where it's due. Good call.
Thank you.
Yeah, right on. So we're back.
Yes.
I'm going to dive into so much stuff. Last time we got into a whole slew of things, but we didn't go deep. So there's a few things I definitely wanted to get into, and I thought about it a lot. You know, some of the things I reflected on, we talked about, and some of the things that not only shaped the marketing of the parties, just the political culture, the different things that we're seeing out there. But we didn't spend a lot of time actually talking about the riots and talking about some of the things going on.
Yeah.
We touched on it. We touched on CHOP. We touched on a few things. I want to come back to this before we go forward and get into maybe some of the election stuff and predictions and things that we see, because we touched on that. But the riots have been insanely troubling. And in my experience, looking at it from a human being lens, it scares the crap out of me what's going on out there and the amount of life and property and things being destroyed. And I know that's probably a hard thing as a comedian to be sarcastic about or to put a spin on. But it is kind of crazy to me what that's become and what that has turned into and what media is willing to turn a blind eye to. Literally, funny memes have been passed around, which they're not. I don't like to say, I don't want to sound like the dad in the room. They're not funny, but like cities burning and they're like peaceful protest, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is terrifying.
It is.
And I want to get your take on it, because I know it's hard to satirically spin that even in your platform. But what do you see going on out there in terms of the riots, Portland and Kenosha and even earlier on in Minnesota? Which, for the record, I've said it 100 times. We all condemn what happened in Minnesota. That's not the question. I don't think that's ever the question. Now we're literally destroying cities, and we talked about the point of it being democratic cities, but more so, it's terrifying that level of anarchy has crept in, and what's being allowed.
Yeah, I think that young people, I think it's kind of like a perfect storm of a variety of different things. You got the entire country is on lockdown at the same time. So it's not like you're going out. It's young people are young, passionate, and they don't have a lot of things going on right now because they're stuck. They don't have a lot of money. They can't go out and go to concerts. They can't go out and meet new people. So they have pent up aggression. They want to be a part of something larger than themselves, like we all do. We all want to be part of a tribe. We all want to be doing something that's greater than ourselves. It's just kind of like human instinct. So you're locked up. You see all this stuff happening. It seems so obvious to you that what's happening is wrong and unjust. And your buddies are all like, "Yo, let's go out and let's go and fight for freedom." And you think that this is generally the right thing to do. So they want to go out. They want to be part of a squad. And look, they're also young. Like when I was in high school and earlier, I would smash mailboxes and not consider that was somebody's mailbox. I think that they're just young and they're angry. They believe that what they're doing is for the greater good, not to mention the fact that they're young and they're not considering other people. So you put the perfect storm of all these things together at the same time, and that's what happens. I think that their passion and their emotion, I feel it, because generally they're our brothers and sisters, and I don't think that they're all necessarily evil. I just think that they're misinformed. They don't know what to do. And when you watch TV and people seem to be encouraging this and saying like, this is wrong, we're going to burn this mother to the ground until we get change. If you're young and impressionable, you would think that is the right solution. Not to mention the fact that, you know, if everybody else is getting money or stealing things, and I can steal some things and get away with it, and they say that they're going to bail people out of jail that are protesting, and I could just kind of like slip through the cracks and be part of this. And also, oh, my boys are going to go out and do this. I'm going to go along. I want to hang out with my friends. I want to be social. I want to be part of something that maybe is greater or better. And you just add all that stuff together, and it's like a perfect storm. And I think that a lot of them are just misguided, young, emotional, angry, pent up, and want to be part of the tribe. They want to be like everybody else.
What scares me, Dr. Sausalito
Esquire, Dr. Sausalito Esquire,
is the lack. See, here's what's troubling to me, and I'm trying to sort out in my head, is the lack of consequence.
Yeah.
And it's scary to me because growing up, you brought up a point. Growing up, you did something wrong. More often than not, you knew you were going to get caught. Deep down in your soul, probably until you were at least 18, 19, maybe 20 years old, you knew you were going to get caught. And part of the fun was sneaking it.
Yeah.
Like when you drank in one of your family members' house, you had that cool uncle or something.
Yep.
Now you can't say that shit, like to be arrested. But
yeah,
like,
that's right.
But like
that's
you
right.
had that cool, like you hung out, you drank, whatever. You knew you would get caught, or you knew there'd be like a repercussion, or if you knew you came home hammered, your mother would slap you around the house, so you get this wooden spoon. But you didn't care, in terms of like you knew you'd take the beating, is what I'm saying. Today, what bothers me the most, and you're a fellow Ginzo like me,
indeed,
is nobody wants to take the beating anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what's absolutely fucking insane to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there are no consequences, I mean, when I did things, it was always kind of like
maybe I get away with it.
It was like a measured expectation. It's like in the event
the risk is worth.
Yeah, like if it goes wrong, how bad will it really be? I'm willing to dance along that line. But now it's not like, I mean, especially to go back to the riots, if the cops are going to say that, hey, we're not going to arrest petty theft, we're not going to arrest theft under 300, we're not going to be able to arrest all these people. Oh, and we also are going to let people out of jail because of COVID-19. I mean, talk about a free pass. If I was a criminal, I'd be like, yo, we ride at dawn. Let's get out there and smash and steal every possible thing. Like, what could happen? There's a measured expectation of the consequence.
Right.
And so it's almost like, why would you not do it? Like people don't not do things because they're worried about getting caught, or they're worried about getting illegal. They worry about it being illegal. They're just worried, like, I actually don't want to go to jail. If the measure is so severe, people will not do it. If you're going to do something that's really lawless, like murder somebody, you're going to jail, but you're going to do it anyways because you're just lost in the sauce. But for the most part, these small crimes, if you know that there's not a much of a penalty, you'd go do it. I think anybody would, especially if you're young and impressionable and emotional and the time is right. And I don't know.
I think that the problem is they all go out and do this under the auspices of it being a get out of jail free card, right?
And it's right.
But yes, and it's right, and they have higher ground.
Yeah.
What they don't account for is that one night that they don't understand how even a police department works, how maybe they may say, hey, tonight we're going to protect this area, whatever. They may let certain things, like you said, petty theft, certain things, because they don't want to reduce their field force like that, spread their lines too thin, maybe do certain things, depending on the size and how they have to control it. But there's always that one night that they're going to start hauling everybody in. And I think, for the most part, a lot of these, it's a little bit of a generational thing, because maybe I'm old-fashioned. I try not to sound like the old guy in the room. I'm trying to sound cool. But, like, I think a lot of these people, they have lived an entire life consequence-free for 20 to 25 years, however old they all are. And they've literally stood up to their parents. They've stood up to the uncle. They've stood up to the aunt. They've been given. Most of them are like gamers that, like, they sit at home, they play fucking Nintendo all day or whatever, and they're jerking off and they're doing whatever the fuck they do, And they don't realize that every social skill developed the last 100 years, they don't possess. They can't interact. They can't have a conversation. They spontaneously combust in front of you when questioned. And part of it is that push and pull of, do I want to stop, recognize X person, whoever it is, as an authority, as a public figure, as someone who's supposed to tell me right from wrong, or do I not want to and deal with the lack of consequence? So, of course, they revert back to the not wanting to, lashing out, doing whatever they want. They know that there's no consequence. So they're unprepared for life. They go through the rest of their life completely unprepared for any consequence that come. And that's why these kids end up, this is what ends up happening. This is the end game, in my opinion. I want to totally get your pull on this because we're in the same generation. I've seen it. These kids end up 30 years old. And I'm not, listen, guys, I'm not talking about the smart ones that got businesses at home. We've talked about this. I'm not talking about the guys that can get high, fuck around. They make a lot of money. There's a lot of those people out there. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that end up sucking their thumb at 27 to 35 years old. They don't know what to do with their life. They have mommy paying their rent. They're one step away from collecting a crazy check, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And I know you know exactly the people I'm talking about. Yes. They're like, oh, I can't. I have anxiety. I can't go out there. I can't work. I'm stressed. Oh, and these are the people. This is going to be that generation, the big majority of that generation.
I think it's a tale as old as time of a generation disparaging the generation that precedes it.
True.
And saying like, oh, these, like, I'm a millennial. They're being like, these millennials, they don't understand. And it's just like, I just think that's a tired perspective on it, because we don't know their own unique viewpoints on it. And a lot of them would think that our view on it, like, we just don't understand. You know how many people when I was younger would tell me that, or I'd see on TV that when kids play video games, they're going to grow up and be violent. I played every shoot 'em up video game imaginable. I played every war video game imaginable. I played every game with every gun, and I've never been violent to a person ever. I've never been arrested in my entire life. People would say, when you're going to listen to Eminem, you buy the Eminem album and you're going to listen to him talking about killing his girlfriend, you're going to go and do all these terrible things to women. I have absolutely nothing in the utmost respect for women. I don't think that the things that you consume, video games or music or any of those things, are conditioning these kids to be that way. Number one. Number two, I don't think that we can lump in a generation of people, much like we can't lump in a demographic of people or a location of people. Like, it always bothers me when people be like, oh, guys from Florida are dumb, or they're fishing, or there's pictures of them with their fish and they're stupid or whatever. It doesn't matter where you are, who you are. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, when you are, what generation you are. I don't think that it's fair for us to disparage anyone that hasn't yet develop that prefrontal cortex to get to the point where they know. Now, on top of all that, let's also not forget about the young people. When I was young, I played a whole ton of video games, and these guys are playing video games because that's the communication mechanism that exists right now. In addition to that, the college is overinflated, and the degrees aren't getting them jobs. You've got in 2008 when I was looking for when I was like in the college graduation time, you had this huge market crash. So it's just like the income gap is so far. There's all these jobs that are limited, and there's a lot of stuff that's stacked against these young people. And I don't necessarily think that they just don't get it or they have no consequences. And I think it's not necessarily their generation, but it's the lack of discipline that's instilled in them in their parents and the figures that lead them.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't think it's generational. I don't mean to say generational. Yeah. I don't mean to, at least if it came off, I don't mean to phrase it as generational. I look at it as like I said in the beginning, the lack of consequence. It's the lack of responsibility. And I've seen firsthand too many of them. We all have what I call like aha moments in our life. And I don't mean to, like, this isn't about a generational talk, but what scares me about these riots and these protests is they believe that they're in the right to burn someone's business down.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying to me. That's actually terrifying, because there was one clip a while back. We saw an old guy. He got almost beaten to death. He may have even died. I think he was 71. I'm sure you saw the clip too. I think I put it up on my page.
It's horrendous.
And you see stuff like that. And that's what gets me is, why do they think they're right? That's what I struggle with.
I think it's less that they think that they're right and more that they're unaware and following the crowd. I think it's that Monty Python movie where, like, she's a witch, she's a witch, she's a witch, and everyone just says like that. If everyone agrees, generally, if you don't know and you haven't developed that level of wisdom, it's easy to just be like, okay. If everyone says Donald Trump's a racist, it's easy to be like, yeah, he must be a racist.
Let's get him.
Yeah, everyone's saying that. So I think that it's a lot of, again, that tribe mentality. I certainly don't want to be the one that's the odd man out, especially when you're young and impressionable and you don't know. I remember when I was young, when I was 14, 13, I used to think that businesses were just like appointed to you. I didn't think that a guy went and rented this space and paid every month and decorated it himself. When I went into a restaurant, I didn't think that the owner was the guy that was serving it to me. And oftentimes it is. I don't think that you think with a level of depth beyond your own life and how you're going to develop yourself to to have the best possible life when you're that young. I don't think that you're considering other people, and I don't necessarily think that they're going out there and being like, all right, who cares about this shop owner? I think they're just like, that's glass, it's downtown. This thing that happened is terrible. This is the only way that I have to make noise and fight back. I certainly can't use my words. So if everyone else is doing it, I'm going to do it. It's the tribe mentality. And I just think that they're not developed enough. And I always think that these are our brothers and sisters. They're just a younger version of us. We are all the same thing. And to think that they have different sensibilities than every other person in the world, I don't necessarily think that you're like born with that. I think that you're conditioned with lack of discipline of the support systems around you, and you haven't developed the wisdom necessary to understand the consequences of what you're doing to other people and how it affects others.
That's a great, that's the most profound point. The consequences for other people.
Yeah, you don't factor that in.
Factored in with the lack of consequence. So
for yourself, yeah.
For a great example is the cancel culture and Me Too movement. You can literally sit across the room, and I've seen it. Seen it happen to so many people. And you can literally, today, the attempt to cancel people, we were just joking offline about people that try to cancel people.
Yeah.
That literally you have no discrepancy with them. This goes on constantly. And this is where Me Too comes in. You can literally, unabated, accuse someone of anything you want. It's not just rape or women's victimhood or whatever, all the different things. And to the men out there that get, solicited or attacked, all the different things. You can Me Too someone, and there's no repercussion for the person. Like, look at all the stuff Kavanaugh went through, for example, getting appointed as a judge.
Insane.
And we all know what that was, right? He was probably, 13 years old or whatever it was when I think the incident was 16 or 13. He was young.
I think he was in high school. Or
it was high school. It was 100% high. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like high school or something.
You're
like
a kid figuring out your body, learning. And maybe, something happened. Maybe he grabbed the girl's hand, the woman now, touched his pee-pee, whatever. Listen, but what I'm saying, it's irrelevant. But whatever it was, because it's not, but they turned it into like this, he attacked her. We've all been listen, I'm going to say something right now. We've all been in those laundry rooms, in those basements, in our growing up as kids, and the Wonder Years moment, right? Like you're all learning that.
Sure.
To put that on display in front of fucking Congress.
That's if it even happened, and I don't know. But look, we
don't know.
Disclaimer,
we don't know.
Every single person deserves due process. That is again one of the principal aspects of justice.
But why didn't it go to court then?
It didn't go to court because there was no evidence. They were like, you need to do an FBI. The FBI did the investigation. They interviewed people. Her own friends said that it didn't happen. I mean, for the love of God, the guy had calendars. Who has that? I mean, the guy came on national TV. He's got young kids. He's got his wife standing there supporting him, and he's just like, I didn't have sex with anybody until I was in college. Like, this is preposterous. And he's a brat. I mean, I don't know. I just think that I think that it's nuts that the guy was not given due process. He's had a lifetime of service, and all of these years of his entire life, no one ever said anything about it until it was the absolute moment of where he had a chance to elevate his career to a new level. I just don't understand. How they could disparage this guy in such a public forum with no credible evidence at such a specific moment in history and make it politicized and just rip the guy up and down when he's had such a long track record of doing great things. And on top of that, like, we don't know, and the guy deserves due process like anybody. I think that women have been shut down, and I think that they deserve to speak up, and I think that that's an amazing thing. But
I think, listen,
due process for everyone.
I think it boils down to the theme of all this. It's the desire to be right, okay, or to be proven right outweighs the facts. And I know Ben Shapiro, gets the credit for coining the term "facts don't care about your feelings." And I think if you flip that, your feelings are great, but the facts are the facts. So I could be a total asshole till the day I'm dead in a box. Does that make me the scum of the earth, the worst person that ever walked the planet? Just might be who you are, right?
Sure.
And the reality is, hey, he still may give you the shirt off his back. He still may be this awesome dude. And there's a lot of people like that. We grew up with 1,000 people like that from the Northeast in our neighborhoods and things like that, it's kind of a cultural thing, right? It's one of those things. But we're in a culture now and in a society now where that desire to cancel you or that desire to erase you, and it's bad in politics, and this is why it becomes important, outweighs everything that's material in the end. It's like, we'll get it at all costs. We'll get him at all costs, coming back to Trump. We'll get this one, whoever it is. It could be a fictitious. At all costs, we'll get them. And that's not to dismiss that there aren't bad people in the world.
Sure.
But that at all costs, like, there's no lines anymore. There's no like, hey, he was under 21. He was 18. Like, we'd all done shit at 18 that we're not. I've done shit 10 years ago I'm not proud of. But, like, you learn. That's part of learning, you know?
Yep.
But it's terrifying that it's the at all costs.
Yeah.
That scares me.
It's funny because I've seen some musicians recently that are like so outrageously woke, and they jump to conclusions about public figures like Donald Trump. Oh, someone said that he did this. He had to do it. Cancel him. He's evil. And then it happens to them, and it's like they're so woke that they outwoke themselves. They had to cancel themselves because they had to drink their own Kool-Aid. And I've seen that happen, and it's like, there you go, dude. I mean, I understand that things happen in the darkness, and you can't prove everything. And it's a sad reality of life, and it's very unfortunate. And for women, I mean, they get a raw deal in a lot of ways, and I feel for them and empathize.
Men too.
Yeah, but it's like, I can't imagine as a male, I can't imagine what it's like to be walking down the street and know that at any moment anybody could just completely take control of me. Not that there aren't super strong women that could kick my ass, because there totally are. But just in general, to be a girl, and it's definitely, I'm sure it's very challenging. So I can't really speak on it, but I just think that it's unfortunate that people do not allow for time to unearth the truth and the facts, and people don't give people the benefit of the doubt, and people don't necessarily believe in due process. We all jump to conclusions before the facts come out. We make decisions before the facts come out, and and what's happening right now with the left, how they see a video of a guy getting shot by a police officer, and they're just like, this was racist because the cop is white and the guy is black, and they just jump to the conclusion before the facts come out, before the body cam, and it is so irresponsible for you to suggest that, because you saw a 10-second clip on Instagram, and then for you to then take that information and use that as the justification for you to burn everything to the ground. You got to give time for the facts to come out, and it's just unfair, and it is irresponsible that they would push something without knowing the full truth and extent of something.
100%. And I want to come back to being woke, because a lot of that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand the definition of that, what that means. I think people just, I'm woke, or he's going to be woke. Here's the thing. I think woke can be a great thing. I liken it to a light bulb going off, a candle moment. But you have to be careful. So can woke go too far?
Of course.
Of course. So we look at people like Alyssa Milano, who's become insanely polarizing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's come out, she's employed by and this and that. And listen, just like you're saying, nobody's disparaging women or men, because both sides, there's blood on all hands with things. Because don't think there aren't issues on all sides. And we're seeing that now, even with the Ghislaine Maxwell thing. I mean, that's a whole nother fucking 3-hour conversation.
Horrendous.
So she might have been worse than him in many ways, facilitating it.
Absolutely. But again, we don't know until the facts
we
come
don't
out.
know.
Let's wait till she goes. It's like, let's wait till this lady goes to trial.
Let's wait. But there's a woman who was facilitating, so we can
allegedly.
Well, yeah.
And we have to believe unequivocally all the way through in this same thing. If
true.
If a bunch of people say that she did this and she sounds horrible, she might be horrible, allegedly. If everybody says that Brett Kavanaugh did X, Y, and Z, allegedly. We don't know, and you would expect the same for yourself, so we have to do the same for her. I don't know, but if they put her in prison for it, then fuck her.
Convicted.
But until then, it's like, we have to believe in the same thing for all people. She may be a horrible, very bad piece of shit, but we don't know yet. And let's let the facts do what it does. And we have to believe in the justice system. It's the best there ever was.
Here's where the woke thing, POS. Here's where the woke thing goes too far. You have a situation with Alyssa Milano that she doesn't coin the phrase, but she popularizes the phrase. Okay? Gets it out there, trends it. You find out later who she's employed by, who pulls the strings in that, who's trying to shift the PR, who's trying to, create the culture. All that aside, listen, everybody gets paid by someone. And we talked about this. There is that influence. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, where it goes too far and where the lack of, as you're saying, understanding, allowing things to play out, you have situations where you are accusing Donald Trump of one thing on the one hand, but then stuff comes out about your candidate, Grandpa Joe in the basement. Joey Basement.
Shanghai
What's his name? Joey Basement. What's his?
Joey Basement.
Yeah, Joey Basement.
Oh, I'm going to coin that one.
That's a good one. Take it. I'll give it away. It's free. No trademark.
Joey
No
Basement.
infringement.
Yo, that's really
You
good.
heard it here.
Oh.
So you have Joey Basement, and he literally...
Oh, God.
Gonna make a clip out of that.
Oh,
Jesus.
yeah, Joey Basement. That one's that's...
that's Joey Basement literally gets
good.
accused of the same thing. And it's a very vivid claim, and there is reports on it. There is actually substantiated evidence. It's literally, at the time, things filed. And we all get it. Nobody's saying guilty, but we're saying, like, it's substantiated. There's some substantiation to it. But you don't even acknowledge it.
Right.
Now, does that make you lose your credibility? And
yes.
That's the question so why don't people say, well, her credibility's lost?
I think it goes back to what we talked about in the last podcast, where people don't inherently want to pay attention to this. They want someone else to deal with it. It doesn't affect me directly, so I'm just not going to pay attention. And yeah, she may be a POS, but Donald Trump is a racist, so anything that they do is okay. I don't like the hypocrisy. If you're going to believe one thing, just like I said about Ghislaine Maxwell, it's like, if you don't believe in it, if you believe in it for your guy, but not the other guy, then you're a hypocrite. You have to believe in it blanket across everything all the time, forever. You can't pick and choose. If someone comes out and says that Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z, they're just like, Donald Trump is a rapist, a molester, whatever. And then they say about Joe, and they don't do the same. The hypocrisy is just on display. And as we talked about in the last podcast, again, this stuff is recorded, and anybody that has any level of depth of research would see the truth of all this. And you can draw your own conclusions if you're willing to be a steward of the research. And if more people did that, again, these people would lose their power super fast. It's just that people don't want to pay attention, and we are responsible, if we're going to complain about it, for doing the best that we can individually to try to make it so that more people do care. And that is our challenge as people that are awake, aware, do the research, care. It's up to us. We can't complain about something that we don't do our best to change. I think that is a statement for all things.
I think it's right. I don't have any issue with that as a blanket, but I think I also believe at the same time, you should, I'm going to sound corny saying this, you should reap what you sow. So there's almost no consequence for putting things out into the universe, and that's a byproduct of social media and of the platform, and meaning you. So Alyssa Milano, in my opinion, operates almost with total impunity, right? So she puts X out into the universe. It's gospel.
Sure.
Right? And part of that is because when we sign up, we hit follow, and this gets to a deeper thing. We subscribe, whatever it is. We start to buy into that doctrine, whatever their doctrine is. And you brought this up the last time, and it's a great point. Allow things time to play out. Let things develop. And this maybe gets to the root of all this. Better point than even due process. Even better than due process. Form your own opinion, right? Be able to back it up with a few facts. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look at things forming your own, oh, okay, I see this way. But what about this, and this? And maybe this doesn't make a lot of sense. But like I said, what's terrifying, coming back to the riots and the things, is if you don't agree with somebody and you're on one side of the aisle, the left, it's not, hey man, we disagree. It's, now I got to go burn your house down.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be with impunity.
I think a lot of these people are just really young. I mean, if you look at the videos and the images, I mean, when I was 16, I looked like I was about 23, and I think there's a lot.
The mailman.
Yeah, I was playing football. I mean, I have facial hair, I have dark features. It's like I looked like I could have been any age.
You were picking up the beer at the door.
Yeah, so it's just like I think that the vast majority of these people are young, and I don't think that older people necessarily believe that. Not to just say that every young person is uninformed, but those are the people that are out there doing this. And I think that if you really, really look close, most of them are that. And there may be some people that get a little bit older in age, but I would be surprised if there's a 30-year-old out there doing this. And a 17-year-old or a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, that person could just as easily be 21 as far as they look. And I think that those are the people that are the vast majority of people doing this. And again, it's like, have they developed the prefrontal cortex to know the consequences of what this does? I don't know that they do. So it's like, I don't hate them. I feel for them. I feel bad that they're so emotional that they believe that this is the only solution. And I think we should try to inform these people as best that we can, hand to hand, one by one, to have a little bit more discipline for the facts and for the truth and for critical thinking skills. And there's something to be said about like, for example, the two parent household and the loss of that. And I've heard Ben Shapiro talk about this so many times, where it's just like, if you don't have a strong male figure in your life as a young man, it's very, very hard for you to have a tremendous amount of discipline. And that's nothing on these women, because women are absolutely incredible, but it's like, you still need that. And if it's not necessarily your father, that strong male influence, that discipline, that if you do something, not necessarily you're going to get slapped around, but I'm going to be disappointed in you and you're not being a real man. I think that is something that needs to be more prevalent. And I think that has a lot to do with a lot of these things that are happening. And us as men, we have to do everything that we can to try to be in that position for as many of these young, impressionable men as we possibly can. And I think that if you look out there, a lot of the people doing this stuff are guys. And there's certainly females out there, but a lot of it is just young, angry, angsty dudes. And I bet if there was a dad at home that was like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? I saw you on TV. I'm about to slap you around, or I'm about to take your Xbox, or whatever is the discipline. Whatever is the discipline. And that's not to disparage. Whatever's the discipline, the consequences, like, all right, maybe I shouldn't do that. And again, it's a lack of the figures helping to guide them. And I empathize for them. I don't want to hate on them. I empathize for them because I feel their passion and their emotion. And some of them are straight up just out there looting and rioting and causing a havoc. But again, I would wager that if you looked further deep into their life, they're mad at themselves. And again, like the theory of like, why do people insult others? It's because I hate myself. Right. I mean, that is the most truthful statement. It's like, you lash out at others when you're unhappy with yourself, because the only way for you to get yourself up is to bring someone else down to your level. And we just have to keep shining a light on that and doing the best that we can to help
100%. Yeah, 100%. We were talking about this, this morning. So you're at what I call like the honeymoon period of social media. You are in the honeymoon. Everybody loves you.
I don't know about that.
No, but you know what I mean. You're in the honeymoon period, where it's like a lot of love. Hey, love what this guy's doing. Support. Yeah. You'll begin to creep into that he has my spotlight. Fuck him.
Yep.
I have to say something disparaging, or I have to stop sharing, supporting, showing the love.
Yeah.
So as a male on social media, if you're a male out there in social media, you have it a lot harder than a female, for a number of reasons, in terms of not only building an audience, building a platform, a lot of things. There's reasons for that, in my opinion.
Okay.
Depending on your goals.
That's okay.
You know why? It's a lot harder to get a male to hit follow on another male's page, because you have to overcome a lot of guys, especially in this generation, a lot of people have that, like, the minute I hit follow, it's like a hard, like, I'm supporting this person. I'm gonna add love to this person, and they add value to my life. But if you run around half naked, if you portray yourself a certain way, it's a lot easier. Like a meme page, right? It's a lot easier to hit follow because it's faceless. So a fun page, it's faceless. It's easier to. A guy has it the hardest on the spectrum, in my opinion, because you have to qualify a lot of your remarks. You have to make sure you're on point. And I'm just laying out the groundwork of social media. And as a white male, it's even a lot more difficult today in terms of, because you're guilty before you get out of bed for breathing, for being alive in so many ways. So today in this culture and today in this environment, you have to either be insanely true to who you are and proud of that, or it's going to be a facade. And you never want it to be a facade. You want it to be 100% authentic. It's first. And you have to make sure that that authenticity comes through. Because if it doesn't, for 1 second, and people sniff otherwise, they're going to attempt to tear you apart, or they're going to attempt to find a grain of something that they can tear down. And after you get through the honeymoon period, that's when people look for those little grains, those breadcrumbs. And they'll start to say, like, or the copycats will come in, or the people that see what you're doing, the formula, and they start to dissect the formula, and they start to play into that. So when you start to get that hate or that negativity or whatever else that comes in, it's very hard to process that and to start to like begin to, like, where do you file that emotionally? Do you file that under I don't care? Do you file that into no fucks given? Do you file that into I'm going to respond? It starts out with I'm going to answer everyone because I'm the greatest. Eventually you get to a point where you can't. It becomes Tower of Babel.
Yep.
So in this culture and in this environment, as you begin to build a platform and a voice, and I think a lot of these people don't realize how difficult it really is to establish a voice and establish a platform, and you've done it. But you will reach that period, we all do, where slowly but surely people follow you because they love you, or they follow you because they hate you. But either way, they're watching.
Yep.
And they're waiting.
Yep.
And they're in the bushes like fucking hyenas.
The bushes.
They are. And that's what comes all the way back to I gotcha culture, Karen culture, cancel culture. And it's a cycle that spins round and round, and they're just waiting. And that's why sarcasm has become, and I'm a sarcastic son of a bitch online. That's why sarcasm has been a fun way to deal with it all, because it's tongue-in-cheek. You're not 100% serious.
Mm-hmm.
You're poking, you're making a little comedy, a little levity out of something that you're adding a lighter mood to the situation.
Yep.
And it's a safe place to play in. Or you have to be like The Rock. You use the Rock rules of social media. I love everybody. I love everybody.
Yeah.
Love you, man.
Yeah.
Fuck you. I hope you die. I love you.
Yeah.
That's the way it has to be played.
I don't know that there's I don't want to say that it's easier or more difficult for anybody or any class of people, white, black, male, or female. I think that it's hard to measure those things, and I try not to talk in absolutes. I don't know that the question is what's your perspective and how do you value things? For example, we were talking about this offline. If a woman has 150,000 followers because she's taking a picture of her butt, and those people are not following her guidance on anything other than like show me your butt. That's
it's
all
a following, not a community.
How valuable is 150 followers that are there for that versus 50 followers that are there for something of more purpose? Plus, what's the value of a follower? What if your follower was Donald Trump? What if your follower was a thought leader? What if your follower was Oprah? I mean, I think that it's hard to measure these things, and I don't necessarily think that it's easier or more difficult for any classification of people to really do anything. I think that substance and value creation for the end user is what dictates what goes up and down. And if you are creating value, I would wager that the vast majority of people don't care who you are, what you look like, what gender you are, what age you are. If you provide value to me, more value than I'm getting by giving you whatever else I'm giving you, then I'm going to consume it. I mean, people buy things because what they're getting in return is worth more than that $20 bill. And that's why I buy it. I don't buy it because of any other reason other than that. I buy it because I'm acquiring more value than whatever it is that I'm giving you. In the case of social, it's time. I believe that my time is more valuable spent consuming this than consuming something else. And I don't think that your gender or your race or your age or any other things play into that. If I'm getting the value, I don't really care. And I think that the vast majority of people, again, not to speak in absolutes, feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, I take a little more of an absolute because of how the platforms were built, right? So Instagram was built on photography. So what's it going to cater to?
Well,
the genesis.
That's your perspective. I mean, I think that's fair. But I think, again, where does your perspective come from? How are you conditioned to feel this way? You're a guy. So naturally you'd be like, it's so much easier. There's so much easier for these chicks. They just take a picture of their butt. I mean, we don't know. Everybody has their own perspective, and two things can be right at the same time. There's this awesome meme that I saw on Instagram one time where it was like a cube, and a light shone on the cube, and on the wall it was square. And that cube, and if you shine the light from the other side, it was a circle. And it was like both of these things are right. And if you believe in quantum physics, for example, and to go deep into the rabbit hole, two things can be matter can be in two places at the same time, and it only has an absolute point when it is observed. So, and again, I'm not a scientist, I don't want to go deep into it, but look up. I would encourage everybody to look up quantum physics and think about we don't necessarily know anything about anything. We don't know if this is a simulation. We don't know about what is God. We don't know who is doing what. All we know is our own perspective and our own vision of whatever is happening day to day, person to person, how we've experienced our life. I don't know that you're real. You don't know that I'm real. Who knows what's real at all? Maybe you're just here to help my soul evolve in whatever simulation that I'm displaying in front of myself. Here's the other thing. Your eyes can only see light at a certain speed. So we don't even know what's in this room. We don't know what spirits are in here. We don't know what a spirit even is. I don't know. I certainly don't know. I don't know anything. And the more I see, the less I know. And I think that to think that we can be unequivocally certain about anything other than say, this is my perspective, I think is the only thing that I can say is true all of the time. Your perspective may be completely correct, and you're entitled to that. But who knows? And I bet the females would have the complete opposite of that, and they'd be like, every chick hates on me. Because women do a lot of disparaging of each other.
Oh, they're the worst. Yeah, so it's
like
a cat fight.
I bet that they would be like, it's so hard. Every guy just wants me to send bobs and vagine, and this is, yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I think we're all entitled to our perspective, and it's valuable. But who knows? Who are we to say?
Well, I mean, it's like here's the thing. I mean, the reason, and again, nothing I say is a hard line.
Sure.
It's perspective. It's opinion. It's editorial.
Yeah.
But the reason I with social media, because at the end of the day, there's media at the end of that. And anytime you involve the word media, and I'm going to say a term, but it doesn't mean the physical, it's going to be the world of the beautiful people. You're going to perform if you're putting good content, beautiful, good content, good value, good pieces out there.
Yep.
At the end of the day, most people want to consume good, beautiful, loving, generous, kind content. By and large, I believe that. People want to consume good stuff.
People are inherently good.
Good.
I believe.
I believe that too.
Yes.
So when I say the term the world of the beautiful people, once you figure out that you want to put love into the universe and you want to put good things out there and you want to truly add value to people's life, anyone who knows me knows I'm always personally trying to add value and see the world in a good construct. And at the end of the day, I'll have an opinion. I'll say something. You've seen me have 50 of them, throughout this trip. But you try to always come back to say two good things with whatever it is that you put out there or your thought, good or bad.
Yeah.
The reality is, I think some platforms, some things are built a certain way. There's a reason you don't see a lot of newscasters. I mean, they're not ugly people in terms of their actions, things they do. They're inherently good, like you're saying. And like you brought up before, I think they genuinely want to put good into the universe. I think they believe in what they're doing and saying.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the wrong process. But how the platforms are built is controlled. And anytime there is some control to that, there's going to be a little bit of a formula.
Yeah.
And anytime you have that little bit of a formula, it makes for some degree of rigidity, some degree, you know, you can't just, I mean, theoretically you could, you can't just have a page that's like, hey, I'm going to, you know, people aren't going to like a page or they're going to shut it down or they're going to close it. If it's like, I'm just going to do a page that's me burning houses down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a figure of speech. But for the most part, that's because people want to consume good. So anytime there is a little bit of a formula, a code, you can crack the code. And anytime there's a code, there's a system to it and you can game it. So is there gaming to it? Does that mean that certain people excel and certain people won't? To an extent, they will. You have to have, and this is a good thing in some ways, you have to have a little bit of a positive outlook. You have to put light into the universe. You see what I'm saying? So you have to have that little bit of that. Because by and large, that's what people want to consume. It's the same reason there's trends in fashion. There's trends in other things. There's what's hot and what's not. And if you don't understand those ebbs and flows, we never evolve and we never change. But does that mean it has to be, there's this concrete? No, it's always moving. It's fluid, changes. How that changes. The hard part for me, a lot of times, whether it's the rioting, whether it's the cancel culture, whether it's all of these factors, is it comes back to, as you said, potentially misguided young folks putting whatever out into the universe without consequence, lacking a certain level of enlightenment, light bulb, moment.
Yeah.
And the inability to just what we're doing right here, have an adult conversation and not walk away saying, you know what, Bobby, I'm going to go burn your house down. And then that's what I keep coming home to. And how that's fixed, I don't know. And that's the struggle I will have, whether it's vis-a-vis social media. Hi, I'm going to create an account that's going to be Johnny Ninja 42, and I'm going to say whatever I want.
There's one of the beautiful things about life is that we are all discovering ourselves constantly, and we're all at a different path of the journey. And I think that young people, as they learn and understand, are always going to be that way forever. I don't know that it can be fixed in a way, because here's the thing. If you believe that this, whatever it is that we're living in, is perfect in a lot of ways, then those young people that don't know any better, that shake it up, challenge us that thought that we knew what's the extent that something could happen. They're challenging us to be sharper by forcing us to then go back. Look, we were nice and comfortable before there was riots in the streets. Now we got to figure out, how do we prevent riots in the streets? You know, how do we prevent people? It makes us sharper. It makes us smarter. Their erratic behavior is necessary for us to be sharper and better. And I think that, I don't know that it can be fixed, because in a way it's perfectly necessary. It's the yin and yang. It's the duality of life. We need those young people to drill in on the things that we maybe didn't see, to rip those things apart. The internet had this amazing thing where it took all of these businesses that were established for 100 years, and you had to follow these steps to get to the top. And here's the internet, and it just shatters their whole operation. And kids that are 18 years old can make $5 million a month on YouTube. And that's a beautiful thing, because it makes the older guys have to be sharper. It levels the playing field. Life has this interesting yin and yang that is so perfect and beautiful, that their erratic behavior makes all of us sharper, makes all of us better. It cannot, I don't know that it can be fixed, because I do believe that it is necessary to make everyone else sharper. They are just taking something that maybe we didn't act on, and they're using their limited knowledge to just blow it into a whole new dimension. But really what it's doing is it's making us all sharper and better. Because again, what they're mad about is not necessarily incorrect. How they're reacting to it may be, but these things and what happens to us and is happening for us. Like I said in the last podcast, like life happens for us, not to us, Tony Robbins. They need to be that way for us to get better. They need to be that way for us all to get better. Imagine if they saw that video and it was messed up and then just nothing happened. And it was like, then would the world be a better place without that? I would almost say that maybe it wouldn't. Do I wish that they didn't beat people up and kill people and burn everything to the ground? Absolutely. I certainly don't wish that. I wish that it was different. However, I do think that their anger and their emotion and the things that come as a result of other things, the yin and yang, that's just the world balancing itself out. And that is, if you believe in the beauty of life and all of this magical stuff that we have in front of us, the fact that we have these bodies, these vehicles transporting our souls is like, it's just so perfect and magical. And we have to do the best that we can to minimize the negative impacts. But I don't know that it can be fixed in a way, because I would almost say that it's being fixed by their behavior and the fact that they're acting on things because that's all that they know to do.
Well, it used to be everything. I don't want to say everything that you did, but a lot of what you did in life was a balance of risk. We talked about this in the beginning of this.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
And I filed this away, and it's a good time to address it. But there's no risk anymore.
What do you mean?
There's no consequence, and we don't know who's held accountable to that risk or that consequence. Meaning, you have an environment, and this is what's troubling to me, where law enforcement's scared to arrest you.
Yep.
They're scared to do any apprehension whatsoever.
Yep.
Fact.
Yep, absolutely.
We know that. You have a legal system that's the judicial system, all the different pieces that are afraid to act in so many ways because of fear of being canceled. You have an environment that just leads to and breeds these inconsistencies. And literally, we saw it just the other day, one of the guys who raped, I believe, or attempted rape a female in the subway in New York.
Yeah.
He was literally let out of prison because they're not holding anyone during COVID, and he had something like 14 counts.
Yep.
And it wasn't like once, like,
Yep.
hey, fuck, it got, not that once is ever not enough. But 14 counts. And they had a picture or a video, walking the street. It's out. And when that stuff starts to happen, where I push back is, we can't have a society like that.
Right. That's right.
We cannot have, that's not, these principles and these philosophies of case it out, whatever, it'll all work itself out. They lead to an anarchist system that just allows for whatever. But we're in an in-between right now where some people do have the consequences and some do not. And that's what creates this contemptuous. You take this Kyle Rittenhouse situation. We all don't know all the particulars of it. I've
100%.
seen a couple grainy films.
Yes, that's right.
I did see one where he shot the kid that had a Glock in the arm.
Yeah.
That's clearly a self-defense situation.
It appears that way.
100%.
Yes.
From what we know, it appears that way.
It appears that way, yes.
Yes. From what we know. I don't know the nature of the other situation because the film's too dark. I personally can't make it out. I don't know.
Agreed.
I know he was there defending a property. Whether or not he was right to be defending, I don't know. I don't know enough about his backstory, and I haven't done the research. It's fairly fresh.
Right.
And it's under legal scrutiny now.
Yep.
It's out of our hands.
Yes.
But you see a situation like that where at the root of it, there's probably somebody that was a scared business owner that had some security there, whatever, people protecting the businesses. It seems as if the young Kyle was trying to operate in the best manner to protect the business. At least it appears that way.
Yeah.
He seemed cordial with law enforcement. They had given him water. There were certain things we know. He had been open and honest talking to them.
That's right.
And I think at the end of the day, he was just a 17-year-old kid that was scared. Someone hit him with a skateboard. He got knocked down. He was disorientated. He's worried about somebody grabbing his firearm, I'm sure, all those different things. But you have an environment where that kid could face X amount of years in prison, but someone else could have walked down the street, burned a building down, and there's no consequence, Bobby. There's
That's right.
No repercussion.
That's right.
And that's what, again, that's what's terrifying about the crossroads that the country's at.
Mob rule. I mean, they're by caving to the mob, you create a whole variety of other problems that are far beyond even just that individual situation. And we have to believe in due process. We have to believe in the justice system. That's our justice system. But I think we find that folks on the left, whether it be district attorneys or politicians, are more willing to cave to mob rule to score political points, to score clout points within their own groups. And it sets an extremely dangerous precedent where you could say that Kyle Rittenhouse is a savage murderer without the facts, and then you could say that Jacob Blake is some type of hero in some way or whatever because he got shot in the back by the cops, or he's deserving of all this money and donations and whatever. Look, no, loss of life is terrible, absolutely horrendous. But to cave to the woke mob, to not follow due process, or for any of us to draw conclusions about something that we don't know the facts on yet, I think is irresponsible. We don't know about Kyle Rittenhouse. We don't know the details, and we have to believe as best that we can that the justice system is going to sort that out. But yeah, I mean, I think that the precedent being set that if you defend your property, like what happened in St. Louis with that couple that brought their guns out, no one that was riding on their property got arrested, but they did. And it just sets a very dangerous precedent. And I think that the left-leaning district attorneys and the left-leaning judges and all of these guys that are caving to the woke mob, it's scary. It's scary for all of us. We have to believe in due process and to think that
the problem,
just unfortunate.
The big issue with the due process system is Kyle Rittenhouse now probably, he'll get funding and help because it's a highly publicized case.
GoFundMe took his page down. GoFundMe took down the Kyle Rittenhouse Legal Defense Fund page and left up the Jacob Blake donation page. Again, we have to believe in like fairness to all things. Who are they to determine? And look, again, it's a business. They are allowed to do whatever they do for their business. But to me, that creates an opportunity for somebody that's not GoFundMe to create a better GoFundMe, and such as capitalism. Now, I wish that there was a new GoFundMe, a new company that comes out that says, we won't take down anybody's anything. We're going to let the free market determine what goes where and what goes where all the time, no matter what, whether you hate the guy or not. And I think that's what should happen. So GoFundMe, maybe you're taking a capitalism risk by doing that, but it is unfortunate that somebody at that organization could think that that's fair, that I'm going to take down one for Kyle Rittenhouse, but take one for Jacob Blake. I'm going to pick sides, such as the left kind of viewpoint on things, where it's just like this small cohort of people knows better than the sum of all people. That's just it's so ridiculous. It's unfortunate that anybody has that disposition about anything.
That's, I know you're a huge open markets guy. That's why I'm a big fan of some regulation on social media and on social platforms and on things. And I wouldn't put GoFundMe in as a social per se. It's a socially shared platform. But like I'm a big fan, and I've said this 100 times, and I've battled with it with people at the highest levels. I am a big fan of every account being verified
on
every social media.
What, on Instagram?
Huge fan of that.
Okay.
And I have my, for reasons, because I think pretty much anybody can create any account and say anything they want.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to come at someone, you should at least have the guts to have a verified account. If you're a business, it should be you submit, business. And I'm not saying that because to dox, it's not for doxing purposes. It's for understanding who is talking to me. Where is this
I understand
coming from?
I understand that perspective, but here's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Here's what I'd say about that. If I could if there was a town square and I had something that I wanted to say, but I was afraid of persecution, of going in that town square and saying it. How could I say it? In this verified world, I have no voice now unless I go in there and be willing to take soup cans to the face, the rocks to the face that people are going to throw at me. Now I can go there with a poster, and I can take that poster and I can thumbtack it to the wall, and I can walk away. And now my free thought has the ability to cook and be shared. I just don't think that we need to limit free thought. And again, every single thing can be used for good or for bad. And I understand your perspective on the verification. I don't necessarily disagree with that. However, I would be afraid of how that limits the distribution of free thought. Because we talked yesterday about the cops, right? Okay, so the cops are afraid to post things on social because they can be fired for that. Because if I put I'm Sergeant whatever and whatever, and I put up on Instagram that I think that this Jacob Blake shooting was not racist. If I go and I get in a confrontation with another race, people could point to my social media page, say, look, here he is, he's just being a racist, I'm going to fire him or whatever else. I think that any limit on free thought is counterproductive. I think any limit on free thought says that we know better. And if a police officer can create an account with just a cartoon as their icon, not use their name, and push information out that could otherwise be valuable, why does it necessarily need to be attached to them? I think that any limit of free thought is not a good idea.
But is it a limiting of free thought? Is the $1 million?
It is if I can't say it without fear of repercussion. Yeah. I mean, because you're limiting my ability to say it.
I don't know if you're limiting it. I know what you're saying. That you're you're removing the anonymity.
Yeah, and I think that's why. I mean, look, to use the town square example, if I hang something on the board and it doesn't say this was written by Bobby Sausalito, but
here's the $1 million question: is anything anonymous anymore?
Sure.
Besides social.
Yeah.
Like, give me an example. I'm genuinely asking. Give me an example.
The town square. I could take a poster that says that Mayor Jabroni is
You're saying that as if though somebody doesn't pull a camera saying so and so.
Well, such is the game, but
yeah.
but and look, not everything's gonna be perfect, but there's not a camera on every square inch of the world, and I think
no,
better watch out. No, but I'm just saying that I don't know that the anonymity is necessarily bad. I think that you could. Like I could put up yard signs on the highway that say Mayor such and such is a rapist or a racist, and I should be able to just to display that free thought, and people can draw that conclusion or draw a conclusion for themselves. I don't know. It's hard to say. You make a very fair and interesting point, but again, I think that the limiting of free thought in any form is probably bad. But the town square example, like I could hang a poster in the town square, and if my name's not on it, I can't hang it. If somebody sees that poster and it changes the way that they think and makes them smarter or more aware of whatever is there, like think about all the whistleblowers. Think about all those videos that you saw where somebody would be like in the shadows talking their truth about whatever happened. And it's not a court of law, but they like, hey, I got to hide myself because I'm going to get murdered. And people have been murdered. So it would set a precedent where if you were a whistleblower, for example, now there's no more whistleblowing. What if you were fighting against the most evil powers of the whole planet and you couldn't share because of, I don't know. I just think it sets a dangerous limit, even though it seems logical in your perspective. And I'm not disagreeing with it. I'd be concerned about what other blowback would come down the line, that a limit of ideas seems counterproductive.
You're not alone in your thought, because I've had the conversation many times. So it's something I've struggled with, but at the very least, I think there has to be there's something inherently wrong, in my opinion, with someone who just has the ability to go on and create 14 different accounts to be able to just put things out into the universe. It starts to become, so there's limits on free speech, right? We know that. There's you can't say fire.
Steven Crowder has a great.
Oh, go ahead.
Segment.
Go ahead.
Steven Crowder has a great segment about this, where he talks about the limits of free speech when it directly can cause harm. The United States has the best free speech laws of any nation in the world. And aside from those things that can directly cause harm, free speech should be free all the time, forever, unequivocally, no matter what. And that is a very important and crucial element to the betterment of society, to the evolution of mankind, and to the promise of America. If you set any limit on anything, with the exception of those things, the fire in a crowded movie theater, and again, Steven Crowder so eloquently debates this point in so many of his videos. Watch his videos, and that is my perspective. I agree with him almost across the board as it relates to this one. He has a change my mind about this specific thing. I think it's America is the greatest nation in the world, and he specifically cites the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, as being the reason for that and his justification of that. So I think that any limit on ideas, any limit on speech, good, bad, or indifferent, sets a dangerous precedent, because that means that someone else has more authority of determining what is true and what is not at any given point. So,
but does where it leads back to the coming home of it is, does some of that on social media do harm? Where's the line? You see what I'm saying? Because in the environment we're in now with cancel culture, someone could say something, whether it's right or wrong, because of how much it's swung the other way. Sure. Your job can say you're gone. You and I have the benefit of not being employed by anybody, so we can not say whatever we want, but fire in a movie theater. But there's that.
I forget, Al Franken, the former senator from Minnesota, he also SNL character that was so woke he canceled himself and resigned. Ridiculous. But he has a really good quote where he said it's much easier to wear slippers than try to carpet the whole world. And I think that we can't use restrictions. We can't use restrictions on and cherry pick things that we think are not as good. We have to let the world is like should be an example. The way that the earth works, you can't protect everybody in the world. You can't protect everyone, and no one should be responsible for protecting all people all the time. So I think that to say like this thing is bad, or there's a small cohort of folks that are going to say this is good and this is bad at any given moment, again, it just creates more of a problem down the line, and will have other unforeseen consequences. We have to believe that you can't protect everybody, and that it's a dog eat dog world, and we have to believe in the cause of freedom, and we have to believe that nature will sort these things out on its own. And I think that's you have to kind of believe in it all the way through, or not at all. Peter Schiff has a really great point where he talks about the minimum wage, and he makes an incredibly poignant point for why the minimum wage should not exist. And what he talks about is he's just like, if there's a minimum wage and you're gonna say it's $15 or it's $10, you either have to believe in it not existing at all, or you have to, or it could be any amount. Why not make it $500? You have to believe in your principles all the way through, all the way across, good, bad, or indifferent. You have to believe that the world and human nature will sort these things out on its own, because it has since the beginning of time. And to think that we now suddenly know better than the sum of all human existence and people's ability to rationally take thoughts and ideas and determine what is true and factual on their own, again, it just sets a dangerous precedent. You gotta believe it all in. You gotta believe in capitalism all in, and freedom all in, freedom of speech all in. Otherwise, it's like you can't be in the middle. Right. You're either all the way in or you're all the way out.
I love that. So woke, he canceled himself.
He did.
It's true. It's true. It's funny. It's actually kind of sad, but
yes,
it's true, because it's happened more than a few times. And he might have been like one of the originals.
He was. And
thinking back,
so many other people did so many things that you could classify as like worse than that. And he was like, yo, nobody else resigned. Like, what the you just outwoked yourself, fam. That was a large mistake, guy.
But he's like so woke he canceled himself.
Yeah, and that has happened time and time again, and it's going to happen more and more. But again, it's like hopefully they realize the ridiculous premise that they set by spewing all of it out, and then not being willing. They have no choice but to follow their own credo. And
there's limits.
That's how you get chipped.
There's limits on how. It's funny saying this. There's limits on how woke you can be.
Yeah.
Even saying that out loud is because, what was it? There was a female congresswoman. Let me pull the name up. She got caught up in a sex scandal, and she resigned, I believe. Let me pull it up. She had a husband, and she was like getting with the intern or the employee or something along those lines, or they were in a 3-way relationship. There was something to that effect, but originally it started out with she was, because it was like not a staffer, it was just an intern, and something happened where she had to resign, but she started out, her defense originally was something along the lines of like, but it's okay, like it was a female, like it was like trying to be like that woke, like, but we're in this progressive relationship, and it's still like there's certain things, what I'm getting at it, Katie Hill, there's certain things that just people aren't ready for, right? Like just people aren't ready for them. So you can be woke, but like some people were just not ready for certain levels of wokeness is I think what we're getting at. I don't think anybody cares what anybody does behind the scenes. And I know that there's regulations in Congress on what you can and can't do in terms of staffers, especially as it pertains to staffers. But she was married, and I believe it was an intern, and there was some type of 3-way relationship that led to her just having a relationship with the staffer. The husband got jealous, some weird shit happened, and she resigned. But even on the left, they weren't ready for that level of woke, So it makes me think of that, like, so woke, he cancels himself. And, it's funny how that works. And then that's when, I guess the mob with the pitchforks turns on you, or like, they stop chasing the Frankenstein and they're looking for you, they're banging on the door with the pitchforks and the torches. It's kind of wild, but that can happen that way, as crazy as it is right now. I mean, you can burn a business down, but you got to be careful. You can't be so woke you cancel yourself.
Yeah, it's but that again is like that's like the world. That's like the world. That's like the earth burning wildfires to clear all the brush. It's like nature has this beautiful way of sorting itself out, and the destruction that's caused by storms oftentimes has lots of benefits for nature. And the wildfires, for example, though, obviously the loss of property, the loss of life, all that stuff is horrible, but it burns away the brush. And the earth has a way of healing itself, and human nature has a way of healing itself as well. So here they are being, I guess what we could say, wrong or whatever, doing something that is probably not right. And then here it comes and it bites them. So it's just a perfect example of nature, as it were, human beings, whatever, of it sorting itself out. And such is the beauty of life. It's like, it will come back to you, whether it's good or it's bad. It will come back in return. I mean, there's so many examples of guys of people that have like murdered people, like people that have killed people, that it eats away at their soul for their whole life, and their life is now ruined because you took someone's life. That's nature, baby. It's coming and getting you back. It's just so amazing how that stuff happens, and I think that it's perfectly obvious that is what's happening to those people. It's like if you're doing something that is not correct in the flow of nature, it's going to come back and get you ultimately, and let it be an example to all the other people that consider being that way, being like, well, I'm gonna hold these guys to this to these laws and rules, but I'm not going to hold myself. Well, that's going to come and get you eventually. So nature has this amazing way of sorting those types of things out, and here it is happening to them.
Life finds a way.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yes, of course.
I think that is probably one of the best things that is self-regulating about humanity in so many ways. And I think at the end of the day, by and large, we talked earlier about people just being inherently good.
Yeah.
And I think people, for the most part, don't really care what people do behind the scene. I don't think we are as obsessed with people's personal lives, I think, as maybe the media would like to make it out to be. It becomes, at that point, like reading the Star, or the Inquirer. I don't think that, for the most part, there's like an emotion, like we're not emotional about it. And I think that was proven in so many ways. I think it's the hypocrisy that makes people upset, or the hypocrisy that causes people to have, it's kind of like, be what you are. If you want to be Larry Flint, be Larry Flint. Just own it.
Yeah.
Just own it. You know what I'm saying about it? Just own it. And I think it's in the lack of ownership that people get upset, or people find an issue or people have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion. I think if people own it, I think, we're in a culture now where, it's him, her, it, whatever you want to call it. People for the most part may not care if you're in a multi-person relationship. I mean, that's existed for years, or a multi-person this or whatever, or what have you.
Centuries,
literally. Thousands of years.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, people tend to see the universe like, just don't feed me cat shit and tell me it's filet mignon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's like the safest way to put it. It's in all of this political drama, as this all plays out, I think people look for what's genuine. And this is really one of the most important points I can bring up. If you own who you are and you're genuine, if you're an asshole, be an asshole. Own it.
Okay.
It's a safer place to live.
Yeah.
You may have less friends, but if you own it.
Well, what makes you an asshole? I mean, it's that may be someone's perspective. Is anybody going out there being like, I'm an asshole, I'm going to be an asshole, I want to be an asshole?
I think people are short, and I think people know when they're short in their, I like we talked about last time, people throw the term empathy around.
Yeah.
It's a very overused and abused word right now.
Certainly
empathy.
That's right.
Okay, and I don't think it's necessarily saying I go out and that's my mission is to be that guy. But I'm a guy who's short. I'm to the point with people.
Yeah.
I don't pull any punches. And that may be viewed on the West Coast or in certain arenas as like, wow, he's very curt. He's very to the point. He doesn't hold anything back.
Yeah.
But if you know that, is that lacking genuineness? Is that lacking empathy?
Well, you believe that you doing that is for a greater purpose. For example, I'm not going to feed you any bullshit. I'm not going to say something that takes 4 sentences that I could say in one. Right. You may interpret it as me being an asshole or me being short, but what I know is that the time that I would have spent talking those other 3 sentences, I could be out doing something that's going to be more productive. I could either be working on my business, I could be sending people products, I could be sharing knowledge, I could be doing something of a higher value than this. So if someone interprets that as you being an asshole, okay, fine, but you're willing to accept that being their viewpoint because you believe that what you're doing has a greater purpose than that, and that them thinking you're an asshole is of less significance than the value that will be gained in the other 40 seconds that you would have spent doing something else.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the duality of personalities when you see, for example, like in Biden and Trump. I think he's very to the point.
Yeah.
He's very curt.
You know what he's thinking. I mean,
you know what he's thinking.
Think about the level of depth of understanding of what this guy thinks minute to minute, day to day is unlike any president that I've ever seen before. And I'm not that old. I don't know back beyond when I was aware. So, but the fact that I can know the good, bad, and indifferent of what his position is on every individual thing, hitting me with it 33 times a day on Twitter or wherever else, I think is tremendously valuable because it gives more context to his decisions. I don't just see him in a prepared speech that's perfect and flawless and written by somebody else 1 time a week or 3 times a week. I see it straight from the hip immediately, and there's a lot of value to that because I don't have to agree with every single thing that he says, and I don't need to like him as a person. I need to believe that generally he is doing things that are for the greater good of all of us. I believe in the policies and the things that he's enacting, and I got to take the bad with the good and just believe that in this particular 2-party system that this is a better decision than the alternative. And I think that that's really the best case for Donnie, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think 4 years ago there was a drastic misunderstanding for how, at least on the Democratic Party, for how they felt the public perceived Hillary, and that's why she lost. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's why they underestimated how much people hated her.
Yeah.
It's the truth. I mean, just how much people she wasn't likable.
Yeah.
I mean, she would be far from my first choice to dinner.
Certainly.
I mean, she just wasn't a very likable candidate.
Yep.
And that wasn't factored into their thought process. Could they have done things to make her more likable? Yeah, they didn't. She just basically said, I'm here, I'm owed this, I'm entitled to this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show up and everyone's going to give it to me. I went through the slings and arrows of being a senator, being a secretary of state, running and losing, and now I'm owed this. And Obama came along and said no. And then Trump came along and said no.
Yep.
And along the way, I think her seething permeated to the surface. And I think what's going to happen and how this plays out now is I think Joey Basement.
Yes.
You love that.
Yo, that's a good one, yeah.
Joey Basement.
Joey Basement? Yeah.
Joey Basement.
Big fan of that.
Is going to run into a similar problem in the coming weeks.
Yep.
Because we don't know where his frame of mind is now.
Nope.
And I don't mean that his psychological disposition. I don't mean that way. We're just not getting enough.
That's right.
We're just not getting enough.
That's right.
He's not telling us enough.
Yeah, I mean, he's the fact that, again, how important and valuable conversations are, and the volume of how much communication that Trump puts out, for example, versus how much he's putting out. I mean, I think that his handlers, for lack of a better term, and I mean, what do I know? This is just my perspective. His handlers are like, the more this guy is in front of a camera and in front of a microphone, the worse it is. The best thing he could do is say nothing, and that's what they think. And that I think
it's a roulette game.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous.
I think
game.
that's a losing proposition. But look, they've messed up a whole variety of other things. I mean, we talked about the convention. I mean, that's a perfect example of them being willfully unaware of what matters to people. And I think that the other thing too that the left generally, and not necessarily only them, that the left generally forgets is that people are incredibly perceptive, and it's not necessarily always about what you say, but how you say it. It's not necessarily what's on your resume, but whether or not I trust you to be the person that's going to defend my freedoms and give me the ability to live a better and more prosperous life. You know, I don't necessarily know that people like just hated Hillary, but it's like, do I believe in her decision making minute to minute, day to day? Just because she has this long roster of all of these credentials that 50 years ago would have been like, well, she's a shoo-in. Look at all these things. Again, here's the world sorting those things out. Here's the incredible perceptiveness of people all across this land that are like, I don't believe your bullshit. And no matter what she says, it's just like, I just don't trust you. And if Donnie even says a bunch of things that are maybe not necessarily well polished, it's just like, do I believe that this guy is going to fight for the cause of freedom? Probably.
I think the biggest thing that sunk her, besides her likability, and I don't want to go back in the hot tub time machine, but I think the feeling that she felt she didn't need an answer for destroying a server. She felt she didn't. And we're seeing that now, even with Nancy Pelosi, with the haircut, with the blow-dry job, whatever it was she was getting, the cut.
Yeah.
And she feels, I don't have to answer for that.
That's right. She
Boom,
said
I don't have to answer for that.
She said that the salon owes her an apology. I mean... Oh.
So you see where I'm going with this. Like, it's that feeling of you have to answer for it. Right now, there's a gym in New Jersey that the guy's fighting to survive. Got his business license canceled. Yep. Got his whole business canceled.
Yep.
He doesn't know where his next paycheck's coming from. Can't feed his family.
Yep.
People, it's a fucking gym.
That's right.
You literally sign up to go in and destroy your body and build it up.
Improve it, yeah.
Yeah. It's a gym.
Yeah.
And this guy can't even open his doors. There's no level of participation. And you have an elected official that's saying, you got to have masks, you got to stay in your house, shelter in place, hide, everything. And she's like, oh, I was told one person at a time was going to go in. But I thought they were all supposed to be closed. How about that? What do we back up?
Yeah. But
I don't have to answer for that because I was set up. And because it was a setup, it's their fault. And I don't even have to listen. Just open the fucking country, okay?
Yeah.
In plain fucking English. And let people make their own decisions.
Yes.
You know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, clearly you have no empathy because you want everyone to die because that's your point. So you have no empathy. You don't deserve a seat at the table. You don't deserve to have a conversation because you are just evil. Meanwhile, I'm going to go and do
whatever the fuck I want.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah. With absolutely no repercussion.
With no repercussion.
And have the audacity to suggest
that it's
someone else's fault. Like
walking around in a kimono. How dare you?
Yeah, I mean, but again, this is nothing new. They do this in a whole variety of different ways. Politicians in general, but just more with a higher level of frequency on the left side of things. And again, I hate to say right and left, and I hate to just say like, oh, it's always this side. Yeah, it's just the people, and it is just more statistically accurate that it happens more frequently, at least from what I can see on that side. And that is unfortunate. But I'm sure that it happens on the right many times as well. It's just with theirs, it's so blatant and obvious, and just so happens to be hitting at a high level right now.
Well, listen, we did another hour and a half.
Did we really? How about that?
I blinked and I looked, and I don't know where the fucking time went.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take a leak too.
I did quantum. We did quantum theory. We did minimum wage.
We literally cured everything.
Yeah, the world
in 90 minutes. And Joey Basement.
Yo, Joey Basement is the big takeaway for sure.
Joey, if you're in the basement,
come out
and you're listening.
We'd
love to hear more of you.
That's right. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Prove to us that you're as great as they suggest that you are. What the hell?
We want to hear the plan.
We want to hear the plan. I'm a lamp. I'm a candle. Donald Trump is evil. That's my that's my platform. He's evil.
I'm a lamp.
I'm a lamp. I will light the room.
Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can look you up again, and let everybody know how to get in touch.
BobbySausalito.com, at Take Naps on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Bobby Sausalito. Check it. Stay woke.
Stay woke.
Remain woke.
Listen, if you want to reach out, chew the fat, talk about Joey Basement, head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out all the sponsors. There's a long list. Special thanks to Blackwater Ammunition, Galco Leather, Rhino Metals, Gallo Technologies, and, of course, Riton Optics. Thank all of them. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody for taking the time. And, of course, this guy. We did 3 hours worth of audio. It's fucking amazing.
Nice.
A lot of fun. It's just really an awesome debate. Genuinely mean that.
Yeah.
Just an awesome chat. I agree with 95% of what you're spitting.
Cool.
I love it.
That's good. That's a high percentage.
Yeah. You know, and part of it is being able to maybe see different viewpoints.
Sure. I hope, like I said yesterday, or in the last podcast, I hope you changed my mind. I hope anybody